Welcome into the Four Verticals Podcast, episode 172 for this Tuesday, April 7th. How about that? We're in April now. Last time we had the show was about 2 weeks ago. I understand it's been a long time. We'll explain that here in just a second. Of course, yeah, April 7th, 2026. High atop a dreary, cloudy, cool Jacksonville, Florida. It was near 90 on Sunday for Easter, and all of a sudden, cold, rainy, refreshing rain, no less, but happened on good authority. We should be drying out. We should be back to drier weather, but with some beneficial rain somewhat. So there is that. There is, in the world of weather, there's always the sort of the detractors, and there's also, well, not the detractors, but there's the positives and there's the negatives, right? Of having a stalled out cold front moving through the area. As I said, been a little bit since we had a live show. Some of it's scheduling issues, and if it happens around this time of the year, for a good reason, not just going on vacation, that's fine. But apologies for that. I can't guarantee it'll be the same. We're back to normal next week because I feel like I've been saying that the apartment that I live in, where the studio is at my apartment. They do a yearly like emergency system check. Still be in and out. I'm thinking next week. I haven't announced it yet. I'm assuming we'll be next week or pretty soon. So the schedule will be disrupted again, but this week, for the most part, should hopefully be normal schedule. So it's the show today, extra pod tomorrow probably, then we'll have a normal show Thursday, as per usual. At least for this week. Then next week we'll see. Apologies for that, but it is what it is. But let's get back into it. We're live now, and I've loaded show for you guys today. As per usual, even though we've taken a unforeseen break, we still have loaded show for you guys. We have Big 10 win totals out. And we're not doing everyone in the Big 10. We're just doing the the major teams, if you will, the teams that are more or less important, somewhat. And we also have, look at my schedule here, or our itineraries. Who is the best quarterback in the SEC? Who is it? If you have some names, we'll go over. Discussion, if you will. I open a question for those of you in the live chat on YouTube, if you're there, and whatnot. And also, historical what-ifs are back. They're all back. And pretty soon, hopefully pretty soon, we'll be able to start doing our spicy predictions and our projected win totals and all that coming up pretty soon. So it won't be too much longer before we'll get into total season mode. At least hopefully. Now, we'll get to that later in the hopefully category as in the show. Anyway, of course, as we start here, again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, we don't usually take this long break, 11 days break. It happens sometimes. I'm not a big fan of that per se. I know I sound like a hypocrite when I called out other folks for taking a break, but this one was not. This was unplanned. We did not mean to do that. Just scheduling issues were arise. So yes, common hypocrite, whatever. But we're back to normal this week. Next week, at least for the foreseeable future, who knows? But we're still going to do these shows no matter what. But at least until the world ends, which who knows, given where we are right now in the world. But anyway, be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube and on Spotify. Audio only version, YouTube, of course, we go live. Spotify is where you can get the extra pods, Spotify only extra pods, Q&A based, if you will. So be sure to follow on all those platforms, social media, X, active over there pretty usually. And also on Instagram as well. I'll be doing some content there for the season. If we have a season, then we'll do some content. Big 10 win totals is our first topic here. So, Josh Pate stop hair pop. So we'll go through most of these, not all of these. We'll go through the major teams here. So first up here in the Big 10 win totals, it is coming from FanDuel, by the way. Not a sponsor of the show, but we don't have an advertiser on this show. By the way, I should mention that earlier. Never talked to one. Don't really have any interest of having one on here. But if it's for a good, if it's with a good organization, then we'll accept it. If it's for like a betting company or whatever or not, I don't think so. So a FanDuel, not a sponsor of this show, we use it as an asset, right? Just for information purposes. So the win totals have been out for a while. We haven't covered them yet on the show. This piece of paper over here real quick. Win totals here. On my notes here, we'll go through, I think, what is it now, like 10 schools here we've missed out on. The ones that probably don't garner the most attention, but whatever. First up here, Illinois, 7.5. No play here, to be honest with you. We check the schedule real quick here. I believe it should be available to look at on the site I use. Yeah, so Illinois, Look, they've lost a lot of players. They're losing a lot of talent, that's for sure, right? We'll see what they look like at most positions. But their schedule, though, I have no real feel on it. I mean, I think 7.5 probably fine. You get pretty reasonable first three games. You have to go to Ohio State for the Illinois game, rivalry game. Then you have Purdue and Michigan State. You could win those games. Oregon, we'll see, probably a dog in that game. Maryland, you should win that game. Nebraska, we'll see. UCLA, you probably should win. Iowa, we'll see. Northwestern. So yeah, 7.5, pretty reasonable. I think I have no real. If I were to bet on paper, not actually put my own money on it, if I was betting on paper, I would probably not move at all on this. I have no play on that. Next one here, pretty interesting here. So Indiana, of course, won the national title this past season. Their over win total is set as 10.5, which is pretty big. And I think in the world of Indiana football, and the lore of Indiana football, I should say, I don't recall ever seeing a win total of 10.5. That was a new thing for me. I've never seen that before. So add that to the lore of Indiana football on top of the national title last year. Yes, they do lose a lot. Yes, they do add a lot. They are adding a lot of big players coming in. Throughout the transfer portal, Josh Hoover, obviously a huge one. Nick Marsh from Michigan State, really good wide receiver. So yes, they lose a lot of talent. They also bring in a lot of talent. And yet again, their first few games before they played Nebraska on October 10th, pretty simple, right? North Texas lost like their entire team. Coach is gone. I don't think that really puts. I don't necessarily think they necessarily put the fear of God into you this year. Last year, yes, not this year. So you should be favored against them. FCS team, who cares? Western Kentucky, cool mascot with Big Red. I don't think. Unless he's on the field, I wouldn't feel concerned. Northwestern, and no, not really. Even with the new coordinator there, new quarterback, Aiden Childs, I believe, right? He's Northwestern now. How about that? Small world. Then you have Rutgers coming to town. You should be 5-0, I would imagine. I believe it was at 5, 5-0. Then it gets real in a hurry. 3 games in a row. And I believe, is there a bye week? No, there's no bye week. So you have 3 straight games here where you will probably be favorites and probably none, right? Nebraska, we'll see. That is on the road. You host Ohio State, but that's a revenge game for Ohio State. You beat them last year, remember that, obviously. And then you have Michigan on the road. Again, two out of those 3 games, definitely favorites in, or favorites. That'll be very, very strange too. Even again, on top of what we saw last year. But in terms of you being a dog, 2 out of those 3, yeah, probably. I think you could be a favorite at Nebraska, but Michigan and Ohio State probably will be favored in those games. Again, even with the additions you have coming in, I just don't really foresee a situation where you'd be favored in those games. Then after that, you cool off with Minnesota. Then you get USC, Washington. USC's at home, so it helps you out. The Washington game, though, late in the year. And yes, I know there's been a lot of hoopla about, DeMont Williams, is he leaving? Is he not leaving? Him posting a very cryptic Instagram story on a day when the entire university was going to a funeral for a volleyball player, I believe. I don't exactly know the sport. Just very, very weird dynamic there, right? A lot of folks are very, very concerned about the overall leadership situation there. We'll see, right? Is it a big thing or not? Removing all of that is a dangerous game. It's late in the year. You're going to the West Coast. Again, traditionally teams from the Eastern time zone traditionally don't do very well. Going to the West Coast time zone, it's a very, very weird dynamic there. I know a lot of folks, especially the pro football people, look at it and go, time zones? Oh, bro, we deal with this every single week in the NFL. Yeah, I know that. These college football guys coming off high school, especially, they don't deal with this on a regular basis. Yes, I know folks can go, the new conferences and all that. They're all West Coast, East Coast, North, South, East, West. I know that. But it's still college football. It's just organized. It's not necessarily pristine. It's not very clean. It's very, it's controlled chaos. So that does concern me. Even with all the distractions at Washington going on with DeMont Williams, and what happened, within the past few months, and, the whole won't he leave, and ends up staying. Who knows? That could be a tricky game there. I'm just saying that if we get to if we have a season based on things going on right now in the world. We'll see when we get to that point, right? That could very much so be in the upset alert category. Probably will. The end of the season with Purdue, no real threat there. So probably going to say the under because I would expect you may lose 3 games there again, whether it's Nebraska, Michigan, Ohio State, USC, some version of that, some combination of 3 of those games you may lose. So that one I'm going to go the under on, especially with the amount of talent you're losing. Again, I know it sounds like I'm shitting on Indiana. I know it does, but let's be realistic here. Again, this is not Auburn going from 2010 to 2011. I'm not expecting that. I'm not expecting them to go full cratering and just, the complete, we're so back, it's so over. I think of Indiana, we just got to be more cautious, right? Again, it's a tall task to replace all that talent, all that leadership with new guys coming in who, they don't have any, I'm not going to say they're fully bought in because, of course they're bought in now, but it's just, I don't know, there is some hesitancy there, right? Again, I respect Coach Sig. Yes, he'll go down as a legend, and yes, last year was very historic and definitely a earth-shattering season in college football history, but I'm going to be, let's see. I think going under here is, I'm not saying they'll go like 8-5 or 8-4 and worse, but 9-3, 10-2. That outrun possibility. I don't think going 11-1 is realistic. I just don't think that's going to happen. I'll be a little bit surprised if it does. Next one here, Iowa. Steady Iowa, as I call them. Steady Iowa. They've been, the best thing I can say about them is they've been steady. Very, very consistent. Yes, I know. I get called a hater, both on here and privately, about, you just hate their offense because it's, pro football offense. It's I formation. It's like, look, I understand that. A lot of folks defend it. I'm not a fan of it. Clearly, there's a reason why Kirk Ferentz chose to change the offense a little bit, even though it's still mostly the same. Whatever. Their schedule here, a typical Big Ten schedule, right? There are some tough games on here for sure. Starts out, fairly easy. Regional G5 team. You have Iowa State for the Cyhawk game. It's at home this year. Then you have your FCS rivalry game with Northern Iowa, sort of a tradition, if you will. A very rare in-state big school having a D1 team having a FCS rivalry. I know it's not officially a rivalry, but let's call it what it is. It's a rivalry. Even though it's a FBS team playing an FCS team. Yes, to me, for the college football sickos, we know Northern Iowa versus Iowa is a rivalry game. Anytime when they play, being Northern Iowa, when they play any of either one, Iowa State or Iowa, it's a rivalry game. Trust me, it's not. I'm not expecting this game to be a total blowout. I think it should be, as always, very competitive. So you have that. So you should be 3-0, I think. Yes, I'm even including Iowa State. They lost like 95% of their team is gone. So that's why. And have a new coach coming in. Nothing against new regime there. It's just, it's going to be tough to replace all those guys you just lost. Then they get thrown in a hurry. At Michigan, it's going to be tough. New coaching staff, I know, but that should be a massive upgrade over what you have with Sherrone Moore. Off the field stuff aside, just on the field wise, it should be an upgrade with Kyle Willingham. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Kyle Willingham in terms of his style of offense, be assured it is an upgrade. Then you have Ohio State coming to town. So you're rewarded with, after your bye week, it looks like, you have Ohio State coming to town. Have fun, right? I believe that's right. Is that a bye week? Yeah, I think it should be in between that. At least I'm totally wrong. Then you have Washington on the road. Again, team that traditionally has not played on the West Coast a whole lot. Going to the West Coast, not a fan of that. Then you have 2 Iowa or 2 Minnesota after a bye week. So, yeah, correction. There's no bye week in between Michigan and Ohio State. So, either way, still your reward from after playing Michigan, goes to Ohio State. Hopefully it's at home. If it's Connecticut at home at night, it may be a little bit different. But if it's a noon kickoff on Fox, then, probably, the chances are not very high for that. At least they're not very good in your favor, for Iowa's favor. So after Washington, you get Minnesota. Wisconsin for, I think that's homecoming, it looks like on the schedule here I'm using. Then it's out Northwestern, Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska. So, I don't know, that's 6 games you should be favored in, and there's 6 others you won't be favored in. They could spring an upset somewhere, but again, much like the Illinois one, I really have no play here. I think the 7.5 probably going to be fine. Who knows? Now, this next one here, Michigan, just talked about. Let me get to your schedule. Is that it? No. Is that it? Nope. Is this it? Yeah. Michigan. So they, of course, they have Kyle Whittingham here. You know, he's there now. They have they're installing a whole new regime there. You still have Bryce Underwood, who I still have a lot of faith in. So their schedule, believe it or not, it's like kind of low key, kind of manageable a little bit. So you have, I mean, look, the non-con is difficult, right? I know you have your 2 G5s, one of them being a regional, one in Michigan, Western Michigan to be exact. You have Oklahoma coming to town. You should win that game, I think. It's at home, just early. You can just mention Iowa. So your first 4 games are at home. Then you go to Minnesota. First road trip. Not easy going to, Huntington Big Stadium there in early October. Then you have Penn State at home, the rivalry game. Indiana. Then you have Rutgers on Halloween going on there. Out there, East, 2 Rutgers on Halloween. Spooky, I know. Michigan State for the rivalry game. We'll see about that. More on them in a little bit. Oregon on the road. UCLA, then out of Ohio State. I mean, what? I just off the top of my head, 8-4 probably. And I know we'll officially do our record projections here down the road if we can get to that point. But, 8-4, 9-3, not possible. So probably over here for Michigan is where I'm leaning. Next up here, Michigan State. Just talked about them. New coaching staff, too. Pat Fitzgerald's coming in. You have you're going to have a new starting quarterback, right? Because you lost Aiden Childs. He's on the way out. So, I mean, that's going to be tough. And you have Notre Dame on the road. It's a rivalry game. You'll be dogs in that game. Nebraska, you'll be dog in that game. Now, before Notre Dame, you'll have your 2 teams in the MAC, G5 teams. You should beat them, I think. Notre Dame, you'll probably lose that game. Nebraska, probably you will be dogs in that game. Ditto with Wisconsin. Ditto with Illinois. Northwestern, probably a favorite, maybe slight favorite. UCLA, same thing, new regime there. Michigan, Washington, Oregon, you'll probably be dogs in those games. And the Rutgers, we'll see. So, 4 wins maybe. I'm probably going to go over slightly, only because it's Pat Fitzgerald. Again, not a fan of his offense necessarily, his offensive style. You guys, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I'm more of a spread, air raid type fan. Like the flashy offenses, score a lot of points, right? But for an overall coaching standpoint, this is an upgrade over Jonathan Smith. And I thought it was going to work out, referring to Jonathan Smith. I was wrong on that lot, much like a lot of others. So, had to do a lot of crew on that, and I fell for it. But for Pat Fitzgerald, I'll fall for it again. I think they can go over 3.5. There's, great, it's not a whole lot, but, 5 wins maybe you could, especially, if you get towards the end of the schedule here, if there's starting to get a point where you start having teams, whoever they are, whether it's, a Michigan or, UCLA, for example, Michigan, like I just mentioned, Washington, Rutgers, Oregon, if those seasons aren't going the way people thought they're going to be going, who knows? We could see, a potential upset somewhere. Who knows? You never know. Ohio State, 9.5 over there. I think they are the team to beat in the Big Ten. And yes, they play Texas on the road and they're non-con in week 2. Yes, they have to play USC, Oregon. But overall, besides those 2 or those 3 games in particular, and I guess Indiana as well, those 4, I mean, even in those 4 games, I think Iowa State, just off the top of my head, looking ahead here, someone projecting, they should be favored in all those games, right? I think they should be. At least that's not my opinion. Now, once we get to those games, will the dynamics change a little bit? We'll see. And then again, there's tough games there, but I trust Ryan Day. I trust Ohio State. They should be fine overall. I mean, again, it's all those programs like Nick Saban at Alabama. I'm not saying Ryan Day is Nick Saban. I'm just saying that level of trust, right? There's always that level of trust where you just assume that, hey, they lose some guys in the NFL, should be fine. They should be all good here, right? Even with all those losses, I think they should be fine. Now, again, we'll see based on, it could go wrong. It could go, potentially sideways. But I just trust Ryan Day a whole lot to where I'm not too concerned. Yes, it's going to be tough. Yes, could you lose some games here? Yeah, possible, right? Again, in those 4 games I just mentioned, right? Texas, USC, Indiana, Oregon. You can lose all 4 of those games. You can win all those games too, but you can also lose half of them as well. I just happen to think Ohio State should be fine to a certain extent. So I'm going to go over, albeit it's very slightly over. USC next up here, 8.5. Just talked about them. They play Ohio State. They also play Oregon. That Oregon game is going to be the first time everyone will be seeing USC to a large extent playing. Now, us sickos will be watching. We'll be watching on week 0, week 1, week 2, week 3. But most of the college football world, you won't be seeing them until September 26th. That's like a month after the season actually starts unofficially, and late August. So that Oregon game for most people, that will be the first time that game to me feels very similar to when Oregon went to Penn State last year. It's a very much so a season, somewhat a very critical game early on. To where if USC wins that game versus Oregon, they're able to do it. They start 5-0 and they play Washington. They should win that game. Then they go to, ironically, Penn State. That's huge for them. That is a big hurdle they can clear. If they don't, I'm not saying it's going to be totally like Penn State last year, where the whole thing just craters. But who knows, right? I mean, again, it's college football, especially the transfer portal. The ability to be precise in your predictions, not a guarantee. Now, it's not a guarantee we get things wrong all the time, but we'll see. And like I said before, this year for me, for Lincoln Riley, very similar to Auburn in 2017. So again, I used this comparison before. If you've watched the show, you know what I'm about to say. But if you don't, Auburn in 2017, very similar to this, right? Gus Malzahn, sort of like Lincoln Riley, transformed his program from being focused on offense all the time to going more balanced. You had all these, 5-star recruits come through Auburn. Guys like Marlon Davis and Derek Brown, who, once you got to 2017, they were there for a year or two. So, there was an expectation of a return on investment. You had a quarterback coming back or a new quarterback coming in. You just had a lot of things were sort of there. The ingredients were there for Auburn Tech's success, right? And that to me is USC. Sort of the same situation. The schedule is there for you to be successful, right? You get Oregon at home. You get Ohio State at home. Your two toughest games, Penn State and Indiana, the other two tough games are on the road. So generally you would assume you split those 4 games I just mentioned, then that's like 10-2, right? More than likely. So I'm going to blindly trust USC to go 10-2 here. More like, I'm not like projecting that right now, but not necessarily, but there's a good chance they could be. So I'm going to go on the over on that one. Oregon 10.5 here. Strangely, no play. I think that's probably a fine. I mean, the schedule, Boise State, it's at home again like it was a couple years ago. No real threat there. Oklahoma State, we'll see. Tricky. Then you get your regional FCS team. Again, that USC game, as mentioned a few minutes ago, that's the key. Early on for both teams, really. Whether it's USC or Oregon, that's the key. Okay, that is your penultimate, that is the early season critical game here. So crucial for both. And then it levels off a little bit. Then you get, your Ohio State, your Michigans. Then it levels off a little bit, and you get Washington's end of the year. So right there, like 10-2, not reasonable or not unreasonable to think. So that one, probably no play there. I mean, I think 11-1's decent as well. At least a decent projection potentially. Let's see here, second to last here of the ones we're going over. Nebraska 6.5. I think probably over here. Not overly confident. No pun intended there. Or you know what? Screw it. Pun fully intended there. You have Matt Rule, you have Daniel Holgerson back, you have your new quarterback, and what's his name? Anthony Calandria. I just completely blanked on his name. Who probably fits more than what you were going to get with the other two options you're going to have, whether it's Raiola or the guy who was there briefly, who transferred in and left. I mean, look, the schedule sets up again. I mean, before that Indiana game, you should be undefeated. At least in my opinion, there's a good chance to be undefeated, right? Of course, it starts with Indiana and it gets real with Oregon and Washington. Levels off slightly, and you get, Ohio State coming to town. 8-4, 9-3, not out of the wrong possibility here. I mean, look, I don't know if Phil Compton, if he watches this show, not going to say they're like Big 10 title contenders, but, over the 6.5 win total, yeah, sure. Going to 10-2 or better, I don't know. So, again, if Will Compton and those guys, him or Taylor Lewan, if they're watching, Nothing against you guys personally, especially Will. Like right now, I mean, he's watching. I'm not saying that Nebraska's going, 5-7, but you know, being a Big Ten title contender, probably not. Going over your win total, yeah, possible. And then finally, Penn State 9.5. This one to me is the easiest over you can get this year. Yes, I know it's a new regime there. Matt Campbell's only been there for like 2 minutes, but here's the thing, though. It's like the schedule to me is very, very workable. The non-con, extremely workable. Yes, the Temple game early in the year, very similar to what it was 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago, when ironically Matt Rule beat James Franklin 10 years ago. In this unofficial rivalry game. So I get it. That's gonna be a tough game in terms of the emotions and the fact that you're going there. It's the NFL stadium, you'll have distractions and whatnot. I get that, but generally you should be 3-0. There you go, Wisconsin. I think you should beat them. Did it with Northwestern. Yes, it's a week game during the week. I don't think you should have any problems there. Then it gets real. USC, Michigan, you can lose those games probably. And that's it. For the most part, in terms of you being a dog. Right now, you have to go to Washington. Again, we'll see. That is going to be generally a tough game. But besides those 3 games, USC, Michigan, Washington, you should be favored on those games. So there was a path here for Penn State to go over this 9.5 win total. And there's a reason why it's set there, because, again, this schedule is very workable, and they should be favored in most of those games. So Big Ten win totals here, mostly over, a couple of unders, and some I'm just not touching at all, period. So, again, that's my constitutional right to do that. But, oh well. You guys can disagree with me in the comments all you want to, but that's just my opinion. All right, moving right along here. Going pretty good clip here. We're going to try to get the show done reasonably quickly here because I have some things to get to here I have to attend to. Just a question we're going to ask here. We'll go through this for a little bit here and we'll wrap up with circle what ifs. Sort of a question I was posing here is a little itch here in my back of my head. Who is the best quarterback in the SEC this year? Who is it? Right, there's a lot of names. We'll go over them here in a minute, but who is the best quarterback in the SEC? You can write it down in the comments. You can say it out loud as you're listening to this or watching this. I'll go through some of the names here, some of the candidates, at least the ones that I think are reasonable to think here. First one, Arch Manning. Very simple, right? He improved last year, rough start. He greatly improved. Obviously, the bowl game, he ran for a couple touchdowns, threw for a few. So he's back this year at Texas. He gets Cam Coleman. He gets a whole lot of pieces in addition to Cam Coleman coming over from Auburn. Look, they're not all coming from Auburn. It's just Cam Coleman's coming from Auburn in addition to other players that are coming with him. Not from Auburn, just from other countries in the transfer from other countries, not literally, other schools around the country coming with them. There you go. So, yes, that one, definitely the candidate, probably number one for most people, Arch Manning. Though I will say, it'll be interesting to see, right, given that, yes, Texas does have Ohio State coming to town. Is that jump actually real, right? Is the momentum carrying on from the strong finish last year? After you beat Texas A&M, you had the strong finish after a very, very sluggish start. Is it possible that you can, use the momentum from end of last year, bowl game, and springboard into next year? Very unlikely that always continues on, but in terms of seeing Arch Manning improve, not impossible. Obviously, yes, he can easily improve. And they obviously have a lot of talent there to help him out, at least players to get the ball to you. So Arch Manning, clearly, I think for most people, would be number one and the best quarterback in the SEC. Next one, Byrum Brown at Auburn. Again, I know I've been very, very down on Auburn. And look, I think my justifications for being cautious about them are genuine, right? You lose a lot of talent, your blue chip ratio, whenever Bud puts out the list here over the summer, it's going to take a hit. For sure, the percentage of having all that blue chip ratio talent, the 4- and 5-star guys, is going to take a hit. There was no doubt. You lose all those guys in the portal, guarantee you that number is going to drop down. But what is an improvement is they get Byrum Brown. Major upgrade. Right? Probably the best quarterback talent they've had in Auburn since Bo Nix. That was like 5 years ago, half a decade now, right? So that should be an upgrade, even with all the the new changes there and whatnot. Look, I know it sounds like I'm being a hater on Auburn. Actually, I do like Alex Kalesh. I like that offense. I like that they are actually hiring Auburn did actually hire a serious offensive head coach that runs a modern offense that has proven to be good, instead of doing this whole like flexing thing that Auburn was doing under Hugh Freeze. And eventually we'll talk about that whole Hugh Freeze stuff maybe on the extra pod this week. Maybe if someone had that question in our mailbag. But yeah, Byrum Brown being there out of Auburn, he's a dual threat guy. I know, again, a lot of folks are making fun of his throwing motion. I mean, who really cares? So Byrum Brown should be up there probably. Next one, Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. Again, a lot of folks will laugh at that. He's a pretty good quarterback, though. I mean, his stats back it up. He controls their offense there with Kirby Smart and all of them. All of them, of course, the coaching staff there. So, I mean, look, he's been steady. Best I can put of Gunnar. He should be up there as well. These last two, though, are kind of, not like major question marks, but ones that I think that would be getting a lot more attention if their teams are good, right? Well, at least one of them. The other one is a little bit different. This one is Sellers, LaNorris Sellers at South Carolina is the one I was referring to, right? Uber talented, right? Dual threat guy. Could have gone anywhere last year in the portal if he ended up going. I have that on good authority that there were probably several schools, many in the SEC. One of them I just mentioned, Auburn. If Sellers went in, I'm pretty sure that Alex Gillespie would have been very, very interested in him. But luckily, they were able to get his guy from South Florida to come, but at least to join Alex Gillespie. But Sellers, I mean, look, he could have gone anywhere. He could have left. But he's a loyal soldier, though. Very rare, especially now in today's world of college football. He's a loyal soldier. Look, the injuries of the offensive line, that's a big concern. They lost one. They're hopefully going to get one back. Of course, his injuries took place over the past month during spring practice. It just, again, it sucks that he's on a bad team. There's no way to put it. It just sucks. He's on the bad team. And it's would have been interesting to see, sort of like Drake May at UNC if he actually ended up. Because remember, back in the day, there was those rumors about, hey, Drake May could be leaving to go to Alabama. Originally, he was committed to go there before UNC. I think a lot of folks, much like Drake May and the whole, what if he either committed to Bama or just, transferred there a couple years ago. A lot of folks are wondering what would have happened if he ended up leaving, right? Drake May, if he would have, if he actually ended up going to a better program. The same thing's going to be said with LaNorris Sellers. If he ends up being successful in the NFL, in the pros, folks are going to say, man, what if he ended up going to, I don't know, like Miami, Auburn, Texas A&M, I don't know, I'm just throwing out random teams here, Michigan, Ohio State. What would have happened, right? What people would have had, been more exposed to him, if you will. And he already has a good, decent amount of exposure being at South Carolina in the SEC. But the problem is, South Carolina, again, one of those teams that, in the words of Bud Elliott, takes the checks, takes the losses. So it's unfortunate, but he's up there too in terms of talent, right? And from a talent standpoint, he's definitely up there, probably behind Arch Manning. And then finally after him is Sam Leavitt at LSU, definitely up there as well. Trinidad Chambliss also there as well at Ole Miss. So that's a pretty, those are all guys that could easily be in the running for the best quarterback in the SEC. Now, if I had to choose which one, my opinion is the best, probably would go Arch Manning, probably Trinidad Chambliss, Sam Leavitt, Sellers, Byrum Brown, then Gunnar Stockton. After that, it's a bit of a crater, right? Especially with, for example, Tennessee, right? They'll have a new guy coming in. Alabama with Keelan Russell. Good talent and would be the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't know. Same thing with Aaron Philo at Florida. We don't know a whole lot about him. He hasn't started a game yet. So, best quarterbacks in the SEC. We'll probably do this again on Thursday. The best quarterbacks in the Big 10. That'll be a fun one. All right. I'm going to get some water here real quick, and we'll wrap up with historical what-ifs. Again, thank you guys so much for joining in the show. Again, it's been hectic. I mean, if have been watching the world news, it's been, let's just say it's been a very, very strange day for the most part. More on that here later. Just to say real quick, this is not a political show, but in terms of college football, I'll say something towards the end here that relates to it that I think is something that we need to start at least coming to the exception of it. Something may happen in terms of what will happen to the season for college football. More on that here after historical what-ifs. First up here, what if? Historical what if. What if Tennessee did not lose to South Carolina in 2022? Of course, if you don't remember, Tennessee was number 1 team in the country at one point. This was the height of Hendon Hooker, Josh Heupel. Speaking of Alex Kalesha was there. He was the coordinator. Tennessee was number 1 team in the country. So they lose to Georgia. It's a somewhat competitive game. And they go to South Carolina as a top 5 team in the college football playoff committee's rankings, right? They lose that game in blowout fashion. Spencer Rattler goes off, the Rat, as they call him, formerly of the vaunted Saints, arch rivals of the Buccaneers in the NFC South. My team in the NFL cheer for the Bucs. They lose that game. They also lose Hendon Hooker. So there goes their playoff chances, right? If they did not lose to South Carolina, and they also didn't lose Hendon Hooker, yeah, Tennessee's in the playoffs, no doubt. I think they would have been in. And would they have won the national title if they did? Did them lose to South Carolina and they still had Hendon Hooker? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think they would have won because I think their defense, if I recall, was very sus, to put it lightly. Very, very, very poor pass defense. But offensively, though, definitely would have been playoff caliber. Defense, not so much. Probably would have been very similar to, not saying it's the exact same type of team, but similar in terms of the style, right? High octane offense, defense, very, very poor. It would have been very similar to Auburn in 2013, right? Auburn's, I think the famous line from, it may have been, who was it? Gary Danielson, I believe, on the SEC championship call that year when they played Missouri. I think Gary's line towards the end of the game was, hey, Auburn's offense, BCS ready. Auburn's defense, I don't know. That would have been Tennessee. Offense, college football playoff ready. Defense, not so much. So they would have been in, but would they have actually won the championship that year? Probably not. I don't think so. Second one here. What if Houston didn't lose to Navy in 2016? Could have made the playoffs? Yes, I think so. We just talked about this on one of these what-ifs, I believe, a couple weeks ago, when we talked about Louisville and Lamar Jackson. That same year, right? They lose to Houston. That Houston team, remember, beat Oklahoma. And the year before they went like 11-2 or some shit. Like, they were a really good G5 team. And they started out in 2016 undefeated before they lost to Navy, right? They beat Oklahoma. They were, I believe, a borderline top 5 team. I believe they're like number 6 or 7. 6, 7. There we go. There's one per show though. If you have to do one per show, I believe they were somewhere like the lower top 10. Then they lost to Navy, right? And they lost somewhere else after that. The things fell apart is what happened. And then Tom Herman takes the Texas job. So I believe Greg Ward Jr. at the quarterback there, a very good quarterback, underrated by the way. So if they didn't lose to Houston, or Houston didn't lose to Navy, and they finished the whole year undefeated, along with beating Oklahoma and Louisville, you didn't change any of that. Yes, they would have been in the playoffs, and you would have been in the 14 playoff. The first team, even before Cincinnati, in the 14 playoff. Crazy as it would have been. And then the last one here, then we'll wrap up the show with a final comment. Last one here. What if Alabama did not lose to Auburn, or what if they did lose to Auburn in 2021, right? That was the whole, 2021 game where Auburn was up 10-0, and that was the TJ Philly Memorial game, and Auburn had like a 99% chance, according to AWS, all of the predictive sites, to win that game going to the fourth quarter, and they lost somehow. All thanks to Shaquille Brooks of all people catching the game-winning touchdown to win, or they got the game-winning touchdown, but the game tying touchdown again in the overtime. But what if Bama lost? Why did they just lose that game? Well, first of all, they don't go to the college football playoff. Now, I think they still go to the SEC championship game. I think so. Trying to think, it would have been them or Ole Miss. I think it would have. Let me go check here. Actually, I have no idea. Let's see here, 2021 Alabama football. Of course, we all know the official story is they go to the SEC championship game. Where's the year they lose to Texas A&M? They beat Georgia, and then they lose to them in the national title after beating the aforementioned Cincinnati, right? So let me go to the SEC standings this year. So, yeah, if they would have lost, I guess it wouldn't really matter. I mean, they still would have gone to the SEC championship game if they already clinched it because Ole Miss took second conference loss. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, they would have still gone to Atlanta. The one thing you don't change, or you do change, is them losing to Auburn, right? If Auburn actually beats them. That's the only thing you change, and everything else up to that point stays the same until the SEC championship game, right? And they beat Georgia. Does Bama still get in the playoff? I guess. I mean, maybe. Actually, let me check the final rankings before, at least who was in the mix there. Because I believe, what was it? Like Notre Dame was in the mix, I believe, or something like that. Actually, no, it was Baylor. and Michigan. So would have been Georgia, would have still been in. Michigan would have been in. Cincinnati would have been in. Notre Dame would have been in. They would not have been left out, right? They only had one loss because they lost to, what was it, Ohio State? Ohio State ended up losing 2 games that year. So, yes, you would have had Notre Dame probably leapfrog, would have been in over Alabama. Baylor could have also been in as well because they beat Oklahoma State. Who knows? But more likely would have been Cincinnati, Georgia, Michigan, and then Notre Dame. That's my opinion. And then for Auburn, I mean, do they still fire Brian Harsin in 2022? I mean, they probably still do, but I mean, obviously they won an initial game, so they won 7 games instead of 6 games in the regular season. I don't think if Auburn, I don't know. I guess Brian Harsin winning that game, and he was already on thin ice to begin with. But him winning that game, yes, it would have cooled things down. But because the way Auburn works, the whole deep state of Auburn, you probably would have still have had, because they would have lost to Houston that year anyway in the bowl game probably if you don't change anything else. You still would have had the toxicity level go up anyway, because just the way the season ended before the Iron Bowl. Now, yes, the Iron Bowl would have cooled things down, but the fire still, the thing will have still been kindling. So I don't think it would have changed Auburn that much. But who knows? Maybe it would have. Maybe Brian Harsin ends up being the hero and he's still around. And that's the show, about 40 minutes in. So just to end the show here. Of course, everyone I'm sure is aware of what's been happening in the Middle East, right? Massive war going on, and things are not necessarily all right. Right? Things are pretty bad right now. I was just saying, we talked about this on the extra pod. Someone had a question about, hey, will this war with Iran impact the college football season? I have not said this on the show yet so far, on the big show. I have said it on the extra pod. Yes, I think it's going to impact the season. The war will. Just because of the whole, and look, if you want to know more about it, go to the last, I believe, extra pod we did. I talked more about it. But yes, I do believe this war is going to impact the college football season. It's going to. And again, like I said on the extra pod, no one else has talked about it yet. Like, Josh Pate, not Cover 3, no one. No one's talked about it, and which is kind of bizarre to me because we have seen, gas prices go up, all this other stuff in the economy. If this war continues on, which I think it unfortunately probably is, given what's going to happen maybe tonight, maybe not. If you know. I don't think we're going to have a traditional college football season, right? Like I said on the extra pod, I'll just leave it at this. Those out-of-country games, right? TCU, North Carolina, I believe it's with NC State and Virginia. Those games taking place overseas. If this war continues, nothing changes in the economy and the rising of gas prices and whatnot continues, those games will not be taking place. Those games will be moved to college campuses. And sort of in a way, that's kind of a blessing in disguise as, hey, the games are on campus finally, or actually on campus instead of being a neutral site. But that's not the only thing that will change. I'll just leave it at that. Again, go listen to the extra pod on Spotify for that. Because I do believe, yes, this war will impact the college football season. Mark my words, it will impact it, especially if it continues. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Again, I know there's stuff that may happen tonight. We'll be watching and listening like a hawk tonight on what happens. So that's it for the show today. I know it's a bit of a bummer ending to the show, but yes, to sort of address what's going on in the world, yes, I'm watching it. Yes, I'm paying attention. And yes, it will impact college football to a certain extent, one way or the other. So just be prepared for that. Again, I know a lot of shows aren't talking about it right now. We're getting ahead of it. Even if nothing happens, at least we are bringing it up, being real about it. So that's it for the show. So again, we'll have an extra pod tomorrow, I think, time permitting. And then we'll have a traditional show on Thursday. So just be on the lookout for that. So until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and we'll see you guys on the next stream.